Okay, friends, so thank you for all those questions. We've got probably more than we can get through. And because we've got a lot, we'll just ask one speaker to give their thoughts on each one. So let's start with something. Can something be said about the differentiation of the sexes that was mentioned in the fourth report?
The splitting of the sexes. Well, as said previously, the first human races up to the middle of the third were hermaphrodite. They had different forms of reproduction, which are described in the Secret Doctrine. What we call animal reproduction was the animals had already divided into two sexes, and then before man, and then prior to the lighting up of the manas, the nascent or early human races split into the two sexes that we know now, which is imitating really the animal reproduction. As I said, this was symbolized by the story of Adam's rib in Genesis, where, remember, the first Adam was one sex, or two sexes in one. Then God decreed, he believed Adam to be lonely, he needed a helpmate. He took a rib, and from the rib he made Eve. So in symbolic, in allegorical form, we have the splitting of the one sex into two. And yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And also there's the fact...
Can I just ask, why did he have to make a female for Adam? I mean, if he wanted a companion, he could have as well been a male, or a dog, or a horse, or something like that. Why did it have to be a...
Well, that's a good question. Male and female are really only...
Or it could be a child, you know?
It's a symbolic thing. No. You have to take it symbolically. You see, it's a positive and the negative.
The two polarities.
The two polarities.
And you cannot reproduce without the two polarities. Positive and the two males cannot reproduce, or two females. And that's against nature. It's impossible. I mean, and likewise.
Yeah, just a point that this is just the mode of reproduction, but as far as the soul is concerned, maybe you could say, there's no such thing as sex. It's a spark. It's a spiritual spark, and we go through into the body of a female or male or whatever the experiences are, and then as we rise in along the arc, then as was said, the experiences vary and the mode of reproduction also. That was what was said in the talk.
Ultimately, to reach the state of the divine androgyne, male and female in one, consciously, we have to resolve or balance the two polarities in man. So, a woman, the female, needs to develop the male aspect. The male, needs to develop the female aspect in himself. So, actually, the saying "man, know thyself," the famous motto of foundation of theosophy, the Oracle of Delphi, actually has been interpreted as saying each man must know his other polarity, or recognize that polarity in himself. If he's male, he needs to recognize his feminine aspect, and vice versa, to become a fully integrated human being.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll take another question. The third and the fourth races. Now, are you all familiar with the races? So we've got the rounds. So each round has 7 globes, and on each globe there's 7 root races. Okay, is that so? So this question is about the third and the fourth root races on our globe. had much higher civilizations than ours. Is this meant to be the case? Surely human evolution is meant to keep going upwards. So who'd like to answer?
Well, actually, you're right. Those early races had much more highly advanced civilizations, particularly the Atlantean. They reached much higher levels than we have now, in fact, and yet they brought on their own destruction through the misuse and abuse of their powers. They disturbed the harmony in nature and the earth, and they accelerated the end of their cycle, or so to speak, which was premature, and in the what's known as the flood or the deluge, which and the sinking of the final island of the Atlantean continent.
What about the human evolution is meant to keep going upwards?
I think in the long term, over millions of years, certainly that process goes on inevitably. But on the human level, we see, even in this epoch, we've seen civilizations come and go. They are born, they grow to a peak, and then they collapse, and then a new civilization is born from the roots or the seeds of the previous. But each civilization actually reaches a level higher than the previous one.
Yes.
Perhaps just a point. We need maybe to remind ourselves what was said about the in the Bhagavad Gita, that there is periodically these Raja Rishis, these high masters of wisdom that incarnate from time to time to remind human beings of the truth. So, bearing this in mind, it's humanity has never been without a parent or parents or higher beings to help its evolution and to remind it of these truths, which are in addition, as was just said in the introduction, which are part of our inner spiritual nature when the human, the self-awakening, self-consciousness was there. It said that these, the innate ideas of justice, love, solidarity, devotion, and so on, were burnt into our plastic nature. So probably that's where we need to really stress the idea of progressive awakening. When we look at the cycles and civilizations, certainly there's the rise and fall, etc. But there is an impulse of reminding us that within humanity there is this these seeds of progress.
Thank you very much. Well, we'll have to go on to the next question. Now, the next one is actually very similar, but it extends the idea a little. It says, about cycles, how does it work? When one cycle ends, does everything go back to the same starting point? Or is it on a higher level like a spiral?
Yes, that's the key word, spiral. Everything is cyclic, but there would be no point in staying on the same level endlessly. That goes against nature, against evolution. Everything is evolving, let's say, upwards, up the spiral. So, but through the operation of the myriad cycles, of course, which is the fundamental law of nature, we could say, connected with karma and reincarnation and so on. Although I believe it is possible to go back down that spiral under certain conditions. We can decelerate or slow down our evolution or retard it, we could say, if a soul is given, everyone is given.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. So now we've got one here which is on the analogy of the lotus. You know, the lotus seed contains the complete pattern of the lotus in it before it becomes a plant. But can evolution continue if the conditions are not right? And whose responsibility is it?
Well, the conditions are not right is a hypothesis, working hypothesis. But we would say that nature offers, if we think of this whole elaborate pattern of the whole universe, the conditions are there, everything is provided for. But however, at a certain stage, man becomes self-conscious. Now, if we take a very simple analogy of what's happening today about climate change, about all the questions that people are thinking of, and scientists and politicians, economists, etc., are saying, but racking their brains about how to go about this, because there's too much fossil fuel, whatever, the pollution, this, that. It could be cyclic as well, but however, what mankind, there is a man-made contribution that has accelerated this level to a degree where he has to ask himself questions, because he has the intelligence of feeling that this has come to a level that if continued, then it'll become dangerous and self-destructive for humanity. So there is this capacity of seeing what's happening. This self-consciousness is intelligence and awareness. And this gives him sufficient impulse to ask himself questions, and he's asking himself the right questions, saying, how can we avoid this? How can we also be more sustainable for the coming generation and have more respect for other kingdoms, etc., etc. So this was a mistake. However, the mistake, taken rightly, gives him the adequate questioning. And so conditions here are what he needs to just take up and go into the right direction.
Okay.
There's a biblical quote here that the whole of nature is groaning in travail, awaiting the true sons of God to awaken, to arise, which is us. Nature wants us to evolve, to become true stewards of this creation and to act responsibly. So ultimately we are responsible, and the law of karma, which is a fundamental law of nature, the law of perfect justice, always acts impersonally in that way.
Now, we've got a question here that goes right to the other scale of the cosmos. We've been talking about how we conduct ourselves. It's a question from Skype. Reference was made to 1 million other Earths. Am I right in thinking that the SD, the Secret Doctrine, postulates that these are separate and that they may not interact? That's a cosmological sort of a question.
Actually, the word I used was myriad, but it could be millions.
Myriad. Oh, you mentioned it.
Yeah, actually, yes, they are separate because, not least because of distance. I mean, it said that each planet has its own karma, its own field of evolution, so to speak, and which cannot be interfered with. It has its own planetary spirit, its own sphere of influence and powers. I mean, but as I said, the humanity is spread throughout the cosmos in one form or another, whether humanoid or otherwise, because the human stage is the midway point in evolution, midway between the lower and the higher kingdoms. So, you know, and not least of all, why create, why emanate this vast cosmos or universe and put life, or in an intelligent life, on one tiny planet? It's not logical, is it? It's just, what's the point of, you know?
Thank you. So let's finish with this last question about Hatha Yoga. What was the original purpose for the gurus of old to devise this system, the Hatha Yoga system that was mentioned, when yoga actually means union with God? And Hatha Yoga does not do this. So why did Hatha Yoga, what was the purpose of Hatha Yoga?
May I say something to that one? Or
Yeah?
Because, you know, the initiated knew when you awake the Kundalini that it is such a powerful energy and that you need a very strong body to withstand that. And the first preparation was to build up a strong, clean, healthy body to attempt higher stages of yoga.
Thank
And
you.
that was the meaning, actually.
I'm not sure, did you hear that on Skype? It's really it's proposed that Hatha Yoga was like a preliminary training in order to strengthen the physical vehicle.
Actually, one guru stated that Hatha Yoga is really only a preparation for Raja Yoga, for the meditation, which is the real yoga. And also we could say that traditionally Hatha Yoga was only taught by a master. You know, it wasn't like today in the West where we have books on the subject and people can teach themselves. All these schools of yoga have their correspondent masters and gurus who make sure the chelas worked in the right way. And also it said Hatha Yoga is an extremely difficult path to follow, not suitable for everyone, and that even a judge says it's not really suitable for the West because of the stringent postures, or asanas as they call them, and particularly even the lotus position. We are not we're brought up with that from birth, as they are in India and other places.
Yeah, one question from the audience, then
Well,
we have
just
a
a
break.
comment on that. The answer that the Secret Doctrine gives is not quite that, as far as I'm aware. In volume 1 of the Secret Doctrine, HPB says the masters entirely discountenance Hatha Yoga and say that it can never develop into Raja Yoga. That's just mine.
No, it cannot develop into Raja Yoga.
Well, I think that
Yeah, we must be cautious, take everything in the context of what is written, probably, and see that, well, at least Theosophy stresses the development of spiritual wisdom first, and then the rest will follow. But so, you know, everything falls into place from that.
Just a quick question. Why is it called a secret doctrine? Why don't you just call it a dossier?
A dossier.
Exactly, yes. It sounds a bit fishy to me for myself.
okay.
You have a point actually, because once you write a book on all these subjects, these topics, and publish it, then it's no longer secret, is it?
Yeah, but it was secret, you see, and it's progressively given out. I mean, for instance, at the beginning of the Piscean age, all the secret knowledge was withdrawn because it was a period in which it was foreseen or unlikely that the knowledge would be misused. But now it's being given out again.
But as was said, there's the method of learning which develops intuition. So from that point of view, it becomes a self-realization as something
I
inside.
mean, instead of secret, we could use the word esoteric. Esoteric knowledge as opposed to exoteric. The esoteric knowledge has always been around in one form or another, usually in secret schools or brotherhoods, the mystery schools and so on. It was preserved and not given out to the hoi polloi, but only to trusted initiates, because knowledge is power and a lot of this knowledge in the wrong hands could be misused or misunderstood.
And it could not be named a dossier because it's not a personal opinion or a personal doctrine that is exposed.
It's something to be learned by all. That's why if you that tag.
Something to be learned.
Exactly.
Yeah, certainly, yes.
Or practicalized.
Or
Open to all,
To all.
but
relearned,
not all
we
want
should say.
it. Not all.
And the great prophets
Okay,
gave
friends,
knowledge to everybody. All the hoi polloi got the knowledge from the great prophets, if they would listen to them. So we can't just say that it's only for a certain section of people who can, assimilate it. Knowledge is for everybody, and the prophets have proved it.
Okay, I think we've got to...
This program gives the point of view.
I'm
Can't
sorry,
just
Charles.
say the Holy Spirit is the custodian of power, the custodian of knowledge. That the Holy Spirit is the custodian of knowledge. It's all and in all, rather than saying secret doctrine. Nobody
Well,
has
it
knowledge.
depends what you mean by the Holy
The
Spirit.
creator. Well, I'm just
The
from a
creator.
different point of view, maybe the creator.
Well, in theosophy we talk about the universal world soul, or the anima mundi. I mean, those are, you could correlate them to those ideas. So,
I just
friends,
wanted my point with this.
thanks very much. We're going to have a break. Then there'll be two more short talks. Science and Theosophy. That's the fifth talk. Science and Theosophy. And the sixth one will be the ethics of the Secret Doctrine. So we'll have a break. How long? We've run over time. Shall we have 15 minutes? Is that okay? And then we meet back at what time would that make it?
30?
Probably before we just go away for a break, it's worth reading what HPB has dedicated in the Secret Doctrine, and it's for each of us to just reconciliate, with the different viewpoints. This work is dedicated to all theosophists in every country and to every race, for they called it forth, and for them it was recorded.
Thank you very much. So we meet back at 25:02. 25:02.
What's your name again? I was